The upcoming expositions surrounding hags have been written as if the players in this fictional campaign are reflecting upon their past events. These reflections are brought on by the surroundings of the players on their final approach to their ultimate foray into extraordinary danger. We at Encounter This would like to express a content and trigger warning for these expositions. They may contain dark themes and imagery, including, but not limited to, outdated cultural opinions, adult content, sexuality, child abuse, gore, and violence that may be uncomfortable for some audience members. Listener discretion is advised.
When that hulking Feywitch fell, a melted mess is all that was left where a so-called face once was placed, now indiscernible from the massive bloody hump that lay at your feet. You felt relief like never before. It was done. The wretched puppeteer of evil, slain. And the soul of Twiggy, wherever it may be, could finally lay to rest. The quest for avenging Harry's death, complete. Oh, how wrong you were. When you found Loretta amidst the horrors of the hag's lair, you could hardly tell she was kin to the proud dwarves of the nearby Rhinestone Mountains. Enslaved, tortured, and hardly fed, her jaw was working hard as if she was chewing cud, as she incessantly murmured to herself. Come to find out, she murmured to herself a lot anyway, rarely speaking clearly or even looking anyone in the eye for long. She did, however, manage to relay to all of you the heart-sinking truth. This hag served a far more powerful creature. Meanwhile, she also rivaled over territory with yet another. Loretta knew a lot as she had spent a significant, if unknown amount of time listening to the machinations of these creatures. She even knew their names. She named Auntie Mudgums without hint or prompting. The one that lay on the ground not far away was known as Black Morgan. Even the two sea hags had monikers of their own, Dread May and Wretched April. Black Morgan's rival was Nana Blindtooth, and they all served one master, a powerful hag known only as Grandmother. Brave and stalwart Loretta was, as she guided you to her small village that sat a short distance from the foot of the mountain range. She recovered in very little time and quickly took on the form you'd expect of her resilient and weather-scarred brothers and sisters. You enjoyed their hospitality, their tales of survival, and especially their ale. As you spent your time watching and aiding in Loretta's recovery, you all knew in the back of your minds that you were committed to again moving forward. Eventually. Even with no immediate attachment to the remaining two witches, you all knew you could not let their evil stand. The final string of this puppeteer must be cut, and the hand then severed, for good. For good. Unsurprisingly to at least some of your retinue, Loretta volunteered to guide you to Nana Blindtooth's lands. She had been a thorn in Clan Rhinestone's side for far too long, and she relished the idea of, as she put it, clearing out this wintry, blood-sucking wench of a parasite. Roll a Constitution saving throw to contain laughter. Just kidding, I'm funny.
Hey there, creatures, and welcome to Encounter This, a podcast exploration of the creatures from Dungeons & Dragons and the lore that surrounds them.
Good day, creatures, and welcome to another episode of Encounter This. I am your host, Freeman Cold as Iceden. That was bad.
Well, can't cut it now.
And my co-host is James Cold Ones Kit. And today he will be presenting us with lore and mechanics of the Bheur hag. Well, my accent really comes out in that one. The Bheur hag.
Nothing is going to say Canadiana quite like this episode.
What do you got for us, James?
For those of you who are still listening after that terrible, terrible pun,
I'm so proud.
He is. He
thought
really
of that in the
is.
bathroom.
Yeah. We're going to start a little bit differently. I'm going to start by butchering the Gaelic language. So the word Bheur and Bheur hag comes from Kaliak Burach. Short.
Do you say Kaliak 3 times to get it right, or
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay.
I watched a YouTube video and everything, and I'm still gonna fuck it up. So,
No worries.
who is a divine hag and a creator and weather deity in Gaelic lore. In Scotland, she's also known as Bheur, Queen of Winter, and the word literally means old woman hag. So I think Kaliach is old woman, and the Burach is hag, and they just drop the ach at the end. Even on Wikipedia, it's spelt the same way as the Bheur hag with
cool.
the ach in parentheses at the end.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah, so it's real easy to find, but I couldn't find anything on the NSHag. Anyway, Bheur hag.
Bheur hag.
So, as I'm sure you can divine from the, Bheur, Queen of the Winter, as well as even the tone of the word itself, they tend to favor wintry and snow-covered deserts. So, tundras. They also favor mountains similar to the NSHag, and they are more active during winter, using cold and ice and weather magic to torment villages. Mm-hmm. Their skin is blue and white and emaciated, kind of like a person who is frozen to death. And their hair and eyes are pale and surrounded by the same bruised-colored flesh. Mm-hmm. Each Bheur hag carries a gray staff that can also be used as a flying broom or as her arcane focus to focus your spells.
Oh, this is our witch on a broom.
It is, yeah, and it makes them a more powerful spellcaster. The gray staff actually has its own mechanics that we'll get into a little bit later.
Sweet.
As far as lore goes, it's about as deep as the NSHags. There's like a quarter page of lore surrounding the stat blocks. So Bheur hags love watching other people suffer and die for mistakes they've made during the winter. So if you didn't prepare enough rations or you went out on a long hike, like that kind of stuff. The Donner Party, she would fucking love the Donner Party. Which directly relates to the next point. They are delighted when mortals make petty decisions to eat boots or leather scraps or other junk to survive. Just have completely sealed themselves up and run out of rations. They also tend to seed shitty things into mortals' minds, like hoarding more food for the winter than they need while others starve. Or even cutting down like a magical druid or dryad grove, like for firewood. So
Okay.
Really fucking with these magical places. They prefer when these actions are completely unwarranted. So you've already got enough firewood and you're convinced by a Bheur hag to go chop down a fucking magic grove.
You're convinced you don't have enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they love that. They are awful to behold. So this is verbatim. In the middle of combat, when she has recently slain a foe, she often forgoes a direct attack to take a moment to feed on the corpse. The NSHags were bad. These are the worst to me. There's also a mechanic that reflects that. Mm-hmm. So this gets insane. So to dig right into mechanics, we'll touch on the gray staff. All Bheur hags carry one. It is a length of gray wood that is her magical focus. She can ride it as if a broom of flying, so it has a flying speed of 50 feet, can carry up to 400 pounds or 181.4 kilograms for those of us who speak English and every other language. Their speed is 30 feet, or if they're carrying over 90.71 kilograms or 200 pounds, the flying speed is reduced to 30 feet. It can travel alone to a destination within 1 mile if you speak the command word or you are familiar with that place, and can return when you re-speak the command word. So while holding this, she gains access to extra spells. They're mostly ice. They're marked with an asterisk in Vola's Guide to Monsters, and it takes a year and a day to craft one, and they can only be used by a Bheur hag. So a little bit of a failsafe built in there by Wizards of the Coast. Yeah,
and mostly ice attacks, like attacking,
it's like wall of ice, ice dagger,
ray of frost, that sort of thing,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Very thematic.
Yeah, very, very thematic. Yeah, this is what essentially gives them access to those ice powers, is this stupid gray staff. They also have Ice Walk, which is kind of cool. It means they can move across icy terrain without ability checks and do not suffer disadvantage, whereas there's actually some pretty decent mechanics laid in for like tundras in 5e, so it's all disadvantage. You move at half speed. Like it is difficult terrain, but it's kind of difficult terrain ramped up a little bit.
Okay.
I don't have a reference for where those mechanics are, but I remember I read them one time.
DT 2.0.
Yeah. So they are AC 17, HP 91, CR7 creature. So they're a little bit bigger than the Night Hag, and we'll get into why. They're a medium creature, Fey, chaotic evil. They have damage immunity to cold, which is, it's an ice witch. Of course, it's immune to cold. Mm-hmm. The elemental language that we're going to see today is Orin, so the elemental language of air, the plane of air. They also speak Common and Giant, and their spellcasting modifier is 6, and their DC is 14, give or take. So unlike the Night Hag, they only have one attack. It is a slam, +4 to hit, 2d8 bludgeoning, and 1d6 cold on top of that. So even these things themselves do cold damage.
Okay.
Like they're cold to be around.
It's like they emanate it, essentially.
Yeah, it seems that way. So this is my favorite part about any hag we've touched on, because this is just the darkest mechanic that I think we've read. And it's called Maddening Feast. So the Bheur hag feasts on the corpse of an enemy that has died within 5 feet of her in the past minute. Each creature in the sight of the hag while it's feeding within 60 feet must make a DC 15 wisdom save, or they're frightened for 1 minute, incapacitated, cannot understand language written or spoken, and only speaks in gibberish. The DM controls their movements, which is erratic. They can repeat the save at the end of a turn, and then at the success, they're immune for the regular 5e 24-hour period.
Oof.
So this is just bad.
Yeah.
And this is listed under their attacks. So I believe, I'm prepared to be corrected, that they can do both the Slam and the Maddening Feast in one round.
That is gnarly. And there's no, time frame in which the feast has to happen if for this this wisdom save to have to trigger. They just start and you just have the risk of being frightened right away.
Yeah, so it's a DC 50 wisdom save if you can see.
DC 15. Wow.
So it's
not super high, but still that can affect your whole party at once.
Yeah, exactly. Even if one person falls to this, you've got a party of 4 even under-leveled PCs,
Yeah. And it does have to be an enemy that has died. It's not a fallen unconscious or anything like that, or is unconscious and dying.
It does specifically say an enemy that has died.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would certainly be interesting trying to find a way to have that trigger in combat, I think, for the DM.
I would just fucking
kill
party
an NPC.
Party NPC. This is what they're there for.
Yeah.
It can be a mount. It could be a horse or a dog.
Yeah. As long as it's considered an enemy of the hag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anything allied with the party theoretically is an enemy of the hag. So it could be anything. And my mind just got whirling thinking about this. So it's one action. I stand corrected. They can't Slam and Maddening Feast in the same turn. They're both standard actions. So, something's died within the last round. She can just take 6 seconds to start gouging and feeding on the flesh.
Do you imagine she's cackling the whole time and just throwing bits and pieces aside and just voraciously spreading blood everywhere she's doing this?
I don't see this hag as a cackler.
No?
I see this hag as something that just is. I see it
the strong, unnervingly silent type?
Yeah, with just a false smile, a Joker-wide smile, a real Joker-wide smile.
Yeah.
Even the picture to me is a little unnerving.
Well, that's a dark turn.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. What made me think they were so evil was their particular love for the flesh and flaying of children. But this is in the midst of violence.
Combat, it will forego an attack just to consume flesh.
Eat. Yeah, and they don't get any bonuses to themselves. They don't get any health back from this or anything. And they're just
I probably give them something. Resistance on all damage for the next round or something like that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, but if an enemy's fallen, chances are you're in what Matt Kova likes to call a death spiral already. So.
Okay.
And I don't know if I would if this was a PC, I don't know if I'd let them come back from that.
Yeah, I mean...
Or, they would come back with something.
Yeah, missing a limb or something.
Yeah, maybe a permanent injury, but, maybe...
Only one kidney left.
Yeah, inability to drink or something like that. I'd also like to give them something else, like a little seed. They're different now.
Yeah.
Kind of like when a werewolf or a lycanthrope scratches you or something like that.
Sure, yeah. A little something left behind.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, what about regional effects and layers? What do you get there?
These actually aren't bad either. Within 1 mile of the lair, there are small intermittent avalanches blocking paths or burying intruders, very similar to the Night Hag there. Corpses frozen in ice appearing that might break free and try to attack. Zombies, specters, same as the Night Hag, or a huge blizzard every 2d12 hours that lasts for 1d3 hours, during which overland travel at half speed and visibility is reduced to 30 feet. So that can be a lot of fun if you incorporate all of those together. Also, roads and paths switch back on themselves and make navigation incredibly difficult. All of those things could synergize really well together to create a challenging navigational encounter to get to the Bheur Hag. Because you don't know where you're going. Zombies are popping up every fucking 10 minutes, and you keep circling back past that same goddamn stone.
This sounds like a situation where you could really sort of wear down the players in a non-combat way through exhaustion and that sort of thing, just having a hard time with their survival checks and traveling and finding the route to the lair itself. Definitely maybe an approach to mechanics that I would take.
I don't know if I'd break out the hex map for something like this, but yeah, definitely. All right, roll your navigation check if you're proficient in survival.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You either fail or you pass, and I'd probably put the DC around the same as the Bheur Hag's highest DC, so maybe 13 or 14, like something definitely passable, but there would be a couple of them, 3 or 4 of them, and then every one you fail, you switch back and you encounter a frozen zombie or something.
Yeah. All right, what else?
So for the lair actions, they create a blizzard that is 40 foot high, a 20-foot cylinder centered on a point that tightly obscures everything in the blizzard for the duration. A creature that enters the blizzard is blinded until it ends.
So no damage effects there.
No damage effects. This is strictly controller stuff, which is what we've seen traditionally throughout the Hags. The Night Hag so far has been the exception. This, again, doesn't really blow my mind. 20-foot cylinder is pretty good. Yep. But that's 20-foot diameter, not a 20-foot radius like most spells. So we're looking at 8 squares. On a battle map, that can get pretty beefy, but it's still just a cylinder. I'd rather see something like an ice wall here, where they can create a barrier to give them more time.
Yeah.
This to me just isn't. It's a good controller spell, but it's not a great controller spell.
Right.
Like I would rather something functional. So I would probably just cast Ice Wall and ignore this lair action thing altogether, and then really change the combat. Whereas this is, as with all lair actions, they start at initial count 20, they end at initial count 20. So.
Sure. Okay.
All right, let's dig into some more of the general lore from Volo's Guide to Monsters. There's a section called Treasures and One-of-a-Kind Objects. So we touched on in Sea Hags when we talked about layers more in depth that there's a whole bunch of treasure just kind of thrown everywhere. And that variation and that hoarding mentality makes it very difficult for trespassers to find the good shit. However, a hag apparently knows where everything is at all times, and has this amazing junk drawer style organizational system. They know exactly where everything is in the pile of shit.
Yeah. Okay.
So it could be like a place littered, like if a Sea Hag's lure is littered with like fishing lures and like bones and shit, she knows exactly where she put that +2 underwater crossbow.
This reminds me. This is going to be definitely off topic. This reminds me though. A friend of mine, Riley, and his wife Heather. I think we talked in a previous episode when you mentioned kerning. They do a lot of work in typeface design, and they had been invited to this really old preservation museum. I think it was in California. I'm not even sure you would call it a museum, but basically they went in to look at all of these old fonts on all of these old filed animals that were sitting in formaldehyde and all these tanks and all these drawers and all this stuff. And Riley was telling me a story where the guy just was talking about one of these sea creatures, these rare sea creatures that there's seldom any evidence of, and there was this vat filled with formaldehyde, filled with tons of to the brim of all of these sea creatures, and he literally just dunked his hand in and just felt around and found it and just pulled it out, and you couldn't even see it from the outside of this vat or this cylinder or whatever it was, and he just was holding it in his hand like it was just like a teddy bear or like a plush toy, like it was no big deal, and just Riley thought it was so jarring, but also kind of hilarious. He just knew exactly where to get it. He'd done it so many times, and it was
so gross,
so strange.
Yeah. I know formaldehyde isn't corrosive, but in my mind it is.
Yeah, you don't want to go near it.
No, not really.
Stinky.
Yeah, it's not good stuff. So yeah, exactly like that. That old man was probably a hag. I'm assuming it was a man, I think.
I think it was.
Yep. That seems like an old dude kind of thing to do. Not to be gender biased, but
ageist.
Yeah, definitely not ageist. That is 100% accurate. But if you do find that hag's good shit, the treasure should always be doubted and feared because it is likely to be trapped, cursed, or locked with a command word, and most of it's going to go bad. Most of it's going to go bad for you. They do not like people touching their good stuff.
Yeah, fair enough.
Above and beyond, usually some of it is super, super unique, even one-of-a-kind objects found on page 62 of Fellows Guide to Monsters. Above and beyond that stuff is usually some super unique items, even one-of-a-kind objects, and there's a great table on Fellows Guide to Monsters on page 62. There's some cool stuff on here. A small painting that depicts a placid field just after midnight each day, and the painting changes to depict the following day's weather. That's kind of cool. The leathery, preserved head of a dwarf. Anyone who holds its head... or anyone who holds its 5-foot-long beard can see through its eyes. I don't understand how that's useful at all, but kind of interesting.
Well, it's kind of like the let's peer around the corner with a mirror kind of trick, right? If there's some way you can drop the head down into like maybe a sewer grate and you can't see in you can see through its eyes.
Sure. Yeah.
Not many uses, I'm sure, but.
And the other one that really jumps out to me is a seemingly empty sealed jar. If opened, the person standing closest to the jar suddenly recalls 1d6 happy memories from the life of a long-dead elf lord. So somebody sold this hag happy memories.
Yeah, crazy.
Which is kind of neat.
I have to imagine some of these working as flavor material when you're in a hag's lair. Just going straight back to the beard of the dwarf for a second. Maybe you're traveling through this tunnel into a hag's lair, and suddenly an upside down, dangling leathery dwarven face just appears in front of you. And what you don't know is that the hag is holding it from above and is looking at you, and you're probably just going to stop in your tracks.
Yeah, that would be pretty terrifying.
But maybe later on you acquire it after the defeat of the hag, and then you realize the hag was holding it the whole time.
Yeah,
just something like that.
Weird shit, man.
Weird shit. I love that stuff.
Yeah, like a lot of this stuff seems like on the one-of-a-kind table, it seems like they didn't write it with a purpose in mind, which doesn't seem the case to be most of the magic items in the DMG. A lot of that stuff seems to be very poignant.
Right.
Excuse me, poignant and oriented. Whereas this stuff just seems like
the hag-related stuff is very non-specific.
Yeah. Very, very open to interpretation and use. And yeah, it's weird shit. Speaking of weird shit,
indeed, we're going to move on to weird magic next. And there's nothing weirder than the magic that is Blackmail Stout.
Please don't take away your sponsorship.
It's a good weird, guys. It's a good weird.
It means how weirdly comforting cracking into that can is.
Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable how comfortable I am.
I think that's just an erection.
Drinking this dark, sessionable, and smooth milk stout. That's verbatim from the can, by the way.
4.5 ABB and all glory.
ABB?
ABB.
Yeah. In any case, thank you, Strange Fellows, for supplying us with a couple of cans. Let's move on to weird magic.
Weird magic.
Remind me to never let you take a gig hosting a game show.
No, I should never host anything. No. I can't believe I'm legally allowed to do this. Over the course of their extra long lives, hags find ways to use magic that is not label specific. So essentially they find ways to hack magic. So we talked about how kind of lackluster this is in the previous episode, and I don't want to dumb down people's expectations, but there is some cool stuff.
Yeah.
So
just at the end of the Anna's episode 2, we did touch on. Wasn't necessarily specifically under the weird magic section, but it was under those minions and pets, and given an example of how it can be used for sure. But yeah, let's see what you got.
So there is some cool stuff. So they do have access to weird things that you can really just think of off the top of your head. So some of the examples they give you are rituals to transform people into animals, polymorph, reanimate the dead. Animate the dead, rewrite memories, which is kind of dope, and siphon emotions, which ties into our Elf Lord happiness jar. So those are really neat, I think. I think you could have a lot of fun with those, but mechanically they're not viable. They're not something you can really do in combat.
Right.
Which I get that Volo's Guide to Monsters isn't supposed to be around combat, but
I always pictured with Weird Magic when I first read it that hags would use them and create these objects and these magics for contingencies to escape. Like we discussed before, they always have more than a couple escape routes or escape plans. And I always imagine the Weird Magic employing that. And I don't mind saying in the expositions that I've written for this whole suite, Weird Magic is definitely employed. There's one in the Sea Hags exposition as well. And there's one in the background that I sort of developed, homebrewed, and I don't really touch on necessarily. There's a lot to interpret in the expositions for sure. But one of them I had come up with was that because they have to create these strange objects to use these weird magics, I created an idea where, a hag actually had objects made from other hags and allowed her to use the other hag's lair actions in her own lair.
okay.
So that was sort of a homebrew idea that I had went with.
Yeah.
And it's just in the background of that exposition. It's not really fleshed out.
I think that's a lot of what Weird Magic is supposed to be. A lot of it seems to be left open to interpretation. One of the things is they can create these items called charms, which are essentially a spell scroll. They're only activated once. They usually mimic the effect of a spell or a potion. Heroism, Vitality, Dark Vision. Slayer, I'd never seen this before. The Slayers, it's a weapon.
Okay.
So this charm would activate that property of a magic weapon. So there's a Giant Slayer and a Dragon Slayer sword.
Okay, yeah.
Which I thought was super dope.
Cool.
But Volo's Guide to Monsters is super, super adamant. I think there's like a paragraph saying that these should be level appropriate. And honestly, listeners, fuck that. Just give these hags some dope shit.
Give them some flavor.
Yeah, and they also suggested they only use their weird magic once per combat. So, using it pre-combat, using it during combat, using it to escape, that all adds up to me. Like, they'll use anything to get out of there.
Yeah.
They also touch on that, in mortal peril, they will use everything under their power to stay alive. They actually somehow turned that entire sentence into an entire paragraph.
As they do.
Yeah.
Again, it's Dickens, paid by the letter.
So what was Tolkien's excuse?
Tolkien was, we definitely covered this, he was not a writer. He was a linguist.
All right, that's the last time this year I'm going to hit on...
You're going to hit on Tolkien?
That is the last time this year I'm going to hit on Tolkien. That is the last time this month I'm going to hate on Tolkien. So you get the rest of January off, listeners. So, if you want to roleplay a hag, if you really want to get into their mindset, try eating a baby.
That's method acting. Jesus. Have you ever made supple leather from a child?
Preferably not a baby human.
Yep. Have you ever started a bar fight and then immediately started feasting on one of the guys you've knocked to the floor?
So, probably don't do that. Definitely don't do that.
I'm going to go ahead and say we are not endorsing these sorts of violent acts.
Yeah. There are a few tenets you really need to be aware of if you want to roleplay a hag accurately. The first is they don't really care about the comfort or the opinion of the things they're interacting with, and that could be themselves, the minions, the Fey courts, other hags, the PCs. No fucks were given. Not it's the Fey courts. As mentioned in Sea Hags, I think, they really only give a shit about what the Fey courts think about them because they can murder them.
Yeah.
Be blunt and be quick to change your tactic with a mortal, be it sexual advance, ideal cooking techniques to be used on that particular creature, or threats. Hags are very set in their ways, free to speak their mind, enjoy meddling with other people's lives, and they're not afraid to punish mortals if they're provoked. Anytime a hag agrees to help, it should be looked upon with deep suspicion, because there are definitely ulterior motives. So make sure you keep those in mind when you offer your PCs a bargain as a hag. Make sure you know what that hag's getting out of it. Like, there's a lot of background to be done here if you're going to throw your hag into a campaign, especially as a larger character. Like,
right.
This creature has a high intelligence and it has a want and a desire, and that really needs to be fleshed out before you get into the game even. Mm-hmm. Like, if your hag is going to be an arc or the campaign villain, you really, really have to do your research and
despite their sort of hideousness, if you will, they are charismatic creatures in their own right. They have a bit of a higher charisma, more or less. It does affect their spells and that sort of thing. I would very much consider that, like that, rolling even those deception checks and insight checks, stuff like that. They might be smart, but they are persuasive, and I would really sort of amp that up were I role-playing one.
Yeah, the charismas are 13 seemingly across board, so...
Yeah, I mean, 14 for the green, 13 for the sea hag, so that's the lowest you're getting, pretty much.
So they're fairly charming. They should also not be subtle about things they want, and they seem to be unafraid to show our interest in magical items or knowledge. So if the PCs have something, access to something, or even just information that they want, they will go after it blatantly. And as we've stated in, I think, every episode, they prefer to avoid physical combat unless they have an absolute unfair advantage, sleeping opponents, infants. Usually it's violence if the hag has insufficiently prepared for an event.
Okay. Or you could just be an Annis hag and just crush somebody to death with your arms.
Just fucking mess shit up. And if their lives are threatened like any creature, they'll do anything they can to get out of there, including acting weak and frail or unintelligent or really trying to manipulate the players. But really play up that manipulation, really play up the hag's ability to charm and role play and be anything it needs to be to survive successfully. And I think that's the ideal, is survival and success and torment are the three tenets of a hag, and they will really do anything it takes to get there.
Wow.
So there are some tables on Vol's Guide to Monsters on page 55, similar to player characters. There's personality traits, bonds, ideals, and flaws. Okay. They're fine. If you really need your help fleshing out the hag, I think that these 4 things are really, really helpful. I think they've been a great addition to 5th edition for really helping you flesh out a character you're not interested in, I think is the best way to put it, or you've hit some sort of roadblock. I always look at these tables, whether I'm creating a player or creating a more intelligent villain. Anything that has access to these 4, I think is really great for some inspiration, because we're all going to interpret things differently. Like, one of the flaws is they are greatly weakened on the nights of the full moon. Like, that could be your campaign arc right there. Like, they want to form a coven, so they're no longer weakened on nights of the full moon. And bam, you've got a campaign. Yeah.
And would you take that as they're literally weakened, or that it's their own superstition? They just believe themselves to be weakened, and so they are much more defensive and careful.
I think it would probably be a specific curse on a specific hag. Okay. So maybe start with a green hag who wants to become an Annis hag, and she is weak on the full moon because she was cursed by one of the Sealy courts.
Okay, sure. Cool.
Something along those lines.
Yeah. I like the idea of maybe that it's their flaw that they believe themselves to be weakened, but they are so much more defensible and cautious and perhaps even more dangerous, like a cornered animal on a full moon, where the players might interpret it as the best time to attack. But it's their flaw, their belief that they're weak is a flaw of theirs, but they turn it into a strength, if you will.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, like I said, that's one line from one of these 4 tables that we've just interpreted 2 very, very different ways.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's awesome.
They're great for inspiration. Yeah, the ideals I find kind of lackluster, as I do with all of them, but like one of the personality traits is they make subtle insults into an art form. So they really just go out of their way to subtly insult you like a British comedian.
I once told my mother loves me so much, and I always make fun of how old she is, and she just lets me get away with it, and she calls me a little shit or whatever. But one time, every once in a while, I'll find a way to just throw a very thinly veiled insult at her in such a way. I remember one time she was complaining that most of her friends were quite a bit younger than her. And I said, well, Mom, it's fine. I've never met anyone from the dinosaur age that looks as good as you. And she just went, oh, thanks, bud. I was like, no, Mom, dinosaur age. Ah, you little shit. Just went right over her head.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Stuff just like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
So there's a lot of great fodder for role playing and for even backstory and history and culture, because you really do want to turn the hag into a full character. Otherwise, I don't really feel like it's going to get the play out that it needs to. But I think, unless we've got anything else to touch on, that's going to kill Bheur hags.
That's it. We're 4 out of 5 done. Last up will be Night Hags. And we will cover real-world lore in that episode, as well as touching much more on homebrew, which we've sort of purposely avoided until now.
Yeah, I'm itching to talk about it.
Obviously, we've touched on it a number of times, can't help ourselves, but hopefully we'll flesh out quite a few more ideas in that episode.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us today, creatures. We will see you, I think, next week for Night Hags is what we've determined. We're just going to launch all 5 of these together, and then consequences be damned.
And then you'll hear Rakshasas from us after that.
Late February, I would think.
Yeah, so. Back to the normal format for a while.
Yeah, exactly. So hit us up on Twitter if you've got any Rakshasa stories at EncounterPod. If you like what you hear, rate, review on your listening platform of choice. Really helps us out, especially the iTunes store, but also the Google Play Store. Probably shouldn't have said it with that inflection.
What, are they going to be offended?
I don't know. Anyway, if for some reason you like the show, you can donate to us and help us break even and continue to do this labor of love that we absolutely are having a blast doing, and I think we'll be doing it for the foreseeable future. But if you want to help us out with that, you can hit us up at patreon.com/encounterthispod. We've got 3 tiers up in our Goblin Warband. There's a $1 tier, a $5 tier, and a $10 tier. And one of those tiers involves a handwritten thank you letter from, well, probably me.
Definitely not me. Yeah. If you want to be able to read it, it's not going to be for me.
So I'll handwrite you and mail you a letter anywhere in the world. I've already got Canadian stamps, so that would help me out a bunch if you're Canadian.
But we're not above visiting the post office.
No, absolutely not. So that's really going to do it this time. Thanks for putting up with all of our shit for another week, and we'll catch you next time for Night Hags.
You all had often considered it highly suspicious that Reginald Craycatcher disappeared shortly after hearing the news of his daughter's death and evil rebirth. What's more, you all suspected he himself knew more, and, in some way, must be responsible for the events that had transpired. His abuse and his flight from Craycatcher's bounty were undoubtedly evidence of his cowardice and his guilt. But now you can't be sure of any of that at all, as you see images of him in agony and despair, molded into the rime covering the dead and twisted trees all around you. Through the thick, freezing fog, voices reach out, speaking gibberish, as if someone, or someones, are stricken with mind-numbing fear and fright. You do your best to draw deep breaths into your chest, the cold air piercing your innards. The thin air causes your inhales to slowly race behind and ahead of your exhales, growing noticeably shallow. It wasn't all that long ago you experienced this sort of chill, when Loretta guided you closer and closer to the base of the Rhinestone Mountains. The thick snow made for difficult terrain that even Posey could not muster a decent path. Loretta, however, was quite adept at navigating the way, and even better now, she's come a long way from the emaciated state you found her in. "A dwarf that isn't stout is no dwarf at all," she used to laughingly say. "No dwarf at all!" Loretta's cheeriness is always refreshing and always remarkably intact. Traveling through the tundra, she never missed a chance to remind one of you that eating the leather of one's own boot was a good way to survive when food ran out. What's more, her reminders are so cavalier despite the fact that was exactly how you found her in the first place, nearly starved to death and munching on boot leather, like a thick piece of auroch jerky as tough as the woman chewing it. Suddenly, a blizzard rises seemingly out of nowhere. You each instinctively look to Loretta for leadership in this unfamiliar terrain, and watch her change from jovial traveling companion to shrewd and readied warrior. The sound of cackling and swooshing starts overhead, crisscrossing every which way, the winds whipping the snow so fast and hard it obscures almost everything. You nearly lose each other in a mere moment, just when the shadow of a haggard, gray-skinned woman glides forward across the snow with impossible ease. Your hands and eyes dart again in Loretta's direction as you hear her cry out, and suddenly her body flies through the air as a humongous white-haired monster charges at you all. It has to be one of the abominable yetis from the dwarves' tall tales. Before you all roll for initiative, you catch the most disgusting thing you have ever seen, as Nana Blindtooth gleefully bends down and begins voraciously feasting on the corpse of Loretta Rhinestone. Everyone roll a wisdom saving throw.